and welcome to another video from FF Scout with us, Lee and Sam from the FPL Family. This week is international break, and it is one of the key points of the season for a lot of people in terms of, is it wildcard time?
Good time for a breather as well. First 4 game weeks have been absolutely insane. I don't know about you, I don't think we've had a season like this so far as the first 4 game weeks. And I think the international break might have come at quite a good time for us to, and some of the teams to actually practice some defending. I can't believe there's not a Premier League team out there working right now on their defensive shape over the international break. Ridiculous.
You would hope so. And I think for us as FPL managers, it's a good time to kind of take stock and reassess how your team is set up and how
data to look at now, haven't we?
Absolutely, and have you kind of got the right formation for your team? Because in the beginning, in pre-season, we were talking about go big in the middle. It's so important to invest through the midfield. And what have we seen up top? Amazing stats from a lot of the forward
But great
players.
Value up front as well.
Absolutely.
Value's there.
And so I think, maybe at this point, if you're on a wildcard over international break, and even if you're not, if you're just planning to use your couple of transfers over international break, now's the perfect time to look at the players that are on form, but also some players who are starting to show a little bit of form, but the fixtures maybe are about to shift, or players that are going under the radar a little bit because we're all focused on the big ones.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of give you a bit of a mix of some key ones that are definitely on form and everybody's talking about, as well as some that are on form and not so many people are talking about.
Your wildcard active?
Not at the moment.
Mine is.
I know yours is.
Mine is, and this is going to be a very important video, guys. So let's crack on, Sam. First pick from the top wildcard picks. Say no more. I think you have to have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, don't you? Or do you?
Well, I think if you're wildcarding, it makes a lot of sense to own Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The way that Everton have started the season, they are in such good form, and that is in part to do with how clinical Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been. It's like having a whole new player. I've never seen him play as well consistently, anyway, as he has game weeks 1 through game week 4. And in part, I think that's to do with the improvements in Everton generally, with the likes of James Rodriguez arriving. There is just a better flow about Everton generally, and that's having a really positive and nice impact on Calvert-Lewin.
Merseyside derby though, game week 5, the first game back. Liverpool have had 2 weeks, and goodness me, don't I know about it, 2 weeks to let that 7-2 defeat to Villa fester. They're gonna want to come back. Surely there is no better game to come back to than the Merseyside derby, and Klopp's boys are going to be right up for that, aren't they?
Yes, but nobody can defend Lee. So I think the reality...
Is that a Liverpool statement or just a blanket Premier League statement?
Well, apart from Southampton, you're off the hook. Everyone else...
Game week 2.
Yeah, but game week 3 and 4, Southampton learned to defend. And I think, for a lot of these Premier League sides at the moment, Liverpool key in this, actually, they let in 7 goals in game week 4, and we can't forget that.
Trust me, I haven't.
And if you go in the members area and have a look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin, XG 3.74 for goals. Shots on target, XG is 3.25. Goal involvement, 3.84. Like, it's huge for every single stat area. I think he's on, 6 goals already this season.
So he's overperforming his XG? Is that what you're saying? Perhaps he should have scored less? Or is he just being that clinical?
He's that clinical. You feel like every time Dominic Calvert-Lewin gets the ball near the goal, it's going to be a goal. Like, there is that kind of consistency from him at the moment, and that is exactly what we want from FPL assets, isn't it?
I'm going to make the case not to get him, actually. Not to get him. Liverpool in the first game back, I'm telling you, Klopp is not going to want Liverpool to make those same mistakes. Trust me, we will defend very well in that.
Alisson will still be missing, so Adrian
will still be in goal. Yes, you're absolutely right to point that out.
Clanger at one end, Clanger at the other end with Pickford. It's goal fest this game.
Well, there's that in game week 5, but then in game week 6, you've just mentioned how good Southampton are defensively. Now Everton go away to St Mary's in game week 6, and we're just sitting here talking about how great they are defensively. So the first 2 fixtures back for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think, are tricky. After that, it doesn't get too much easier. Away at Newcastle, home to Man United, and then away at Fulham. So actually, it does get a little bit easier than Liverpool and Southampton away. So in the medium term, in the longer term, if you're on your wild card, he is a great value pick. I think he's going to be this season's Danny Ings. He's already looking like he's going to be this season's Danny Ings.
Yeah.
So for the money, given that the wild card should set you up nicely between now and Christmas, you have game week 16 is when the second wild card kicks in. I think he's pretty much a must-have.
I think so, and I think, if you're on your wild card, the fact that you shouldn't always look at it from a kind of keeping pace with everyone else's point of view. I mean, you should look for some differentials who we're going to talk about a bit later on in this video, but he is so heavily owned and he's being so heavily invested in that it is one of those players that for me, I don't own him right now. I'm not on my wildcard, so the chances are I'm going into that Liverpool game not owning him. If he scores, it has a really detrimental impact on any attempts to rise up the overall ranks and overall mini leagues.
If you could only pick one, him or James Rodriguez?
CalvertLewin for me, unless Richarlison's out for a while, and then I'd probably go with a slightly more differential pick to Rodriguez in the middle.
Yeah, we saw James Rodriguez slightly getting a bit more forward, taking more risks when Richarlison went off. So all eyes on that Richarlison injury to see how that affects James' game. I think he pushed on a little bit without the Brazilian there. So interesting. Yes, interesting. Okay, second pick then. It wouldn't be an FPL Family FF Scout video with you, Sam, from FPL Family, without a mention for these two. And in weeks gone by, I've given you pelters for this. Oh, Kane again, Son again. But listen, we have to include these guys now. We have to include them after Spurs' last couple of performances. And going into a wild card, I must admit, that's why we've done the graphic Kane/Son.
It's so hard.
It's difficult. And I think you could make a case for both on your wildcard.
I think so. And also we shouldn't forget that Bale is now back in full training. Oof. So he is full training with Spurs as of today. So he has got 2 weeks, well, a week and a half, to get up to speed and ready for the game against West Ham after the international break. So a London derby with Kane, Son and Bale up top, like it doesn't feel much better than that.
Kane or Son, go on, you've got to pick one.
It's difficult. I think, so for me, I'm on Kane. I'm very comfortable owning Kane. I think in terms of the way that he's playing, he is going to be there or thereabouts in terms of goals and assists and all of that good stuff that we like as FPL managers. If I was on a wild card and own no Spurs like you do, I'd be really tempted to go with Son. I think the way that Kane is developing his game and playing it is perfect for that Kane to Son constant. And plus he's in the midfield, so any clean sheets, if they ever arrive anywhere, there's the extra point for that, plus the extra point for a goal. So there is all of the kind of extra FPL points that make Son potentially a little bit of a better asset. But I do believe that if you're on your wild card, given how the form of some other big clubs are going at the moment, that you could do much worse than have the pair of them.
I think that fixture in game week 5, by the way, just to not to dampen anyone's spirits about Kane and Son, because you've got to be looking at these guys now. If not Bale, if you want a really cheeky differential, I think we want to see him first, though, don't we? So it's got to be one of these two. That game week 5 fixture against West Ham will not be easy for Spurs. West Ham really switched it on defensively last couple of weeks. They have a fantastic game week 2 against Arsenal, and since then they've just been good again in 3 and 4. Now, one of the things that West Ham have really implemented well in the last couple of game weeks is that low block. They're like, right, you come on to us, we'll soak up all that pressure, and then we're going to hit you on the counter-attack, predominantly with the pace of Antonio, who we may or may not be talking about a bit later on. I think that game is going to be a difficult one for Son, actually, because Son is fantastic at breaking that line, getting in behind the high line. We saw it against Southampton game week 2, and Man United, I mean, goodness knows how they were defending last game week, but he was getting in behind all the time, particularly with Wan-Bissaka sort of not tracking back. I don't fancy Son against West Ham. However, in game week 6, after that, Spurs is Burnley and then Brighton at home, West Brom away. Those look very, very much like Son games. So I think Kane for game week 5, but Son after that. So the question is, if you're on your wild card,
both.
You don't want to have that, because they're in different positions, right? So it'd be a predetermined -4. I have to say, of the two, I'm probably just leaning towards Kane. And I hate to say it, but we're seeing a lot of penalties, obviously, this year, well documented. With him on penalties, and he's being far more creative, as well as finishing. Yeah. He's the all-round package right now, and he looks super, super sharp.
And I think, we all talked pre-season, and we spoke a lot on these videos about fixture congestion for Spurs and how it might be a massive problem at the start of the season. Actually, I think we've seen the complete opposite. The fixture congestion has spurred Spurs on in terms of match fitness.
Spurred them on.
In terms of match fitness and in terms of just general all-round performances, they've been so much better. Now, that might be a problem a little bit further on in the season because they might just wear out of steam given how many extra games they've played already. But right now, for us as FPL managers, it makes them perfect wildcard picks.
It's good. Mourinho's managing the squad. I think Burnley a couple of years ago, Wolves last year, didn't rotate. They went into all those games. They played the same 11. They got knackered. Mourinho is very, very smartly
We've got a bigger squad.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's managing the players. Yeah. He's giving them all game time in different games.
And the players that we've signed mean that we've got rotation in those areas. But with these two, in the key matches and throughout the Premier League, given that the Europa League now is on hold for a little while, and the same with the League Cup, we should see consistency of starts from Son and Kane.
All right, okay, let's move on to the next player then. So, a player that very, very much was on my radar before the Liverpool game, and then I thought, well, I
bought this one in just so that you'd have to talk about the Liverpool game.
Hey, listen, I'm not happy to talk about it, but I have had to talk about it a lot on Twitter and at work this week, which has been a delight, I can tell you. But listen, as much as I've been lamenting the Liverpool performance from a few days back, let's not forget how good Aston Villa were. Yes, Liverpool made it a bit easy with them with the high line, where we're a bit unlucky with the deflected goals, maybe. But listen, I'm not taking anything away from Aston Villa. They were magnificent, and the addition of Ross Barkley in the middle there as a foil for Grealish, right? We spoke so many times last season about the fact that Grealish had to do it all. He had to do the tackling, the running, the assisting, the scoring. He had to do absolutely everything. If it didn't come from Jack Grealish, frankly, it weren't coming for Aston Villa.
And they missed McGinn for a lot of last season as well,
absolutely,
right? So he was by himself. But this season, we've got Ross Barkley now. They've got McGinn back and looking sharp. There's Grealish. Ollie Watkins has been a great addition to that forward line. So they've suddenly got a proper striker who looks to be
I wasn't sure about
really
Ollie Watkins,
engaged.
you know, and then that Liverpool game, he just burst onto the scene, didn't he? It was fantastic. Actually could have had more than the three, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's Ross Barkley that really intrigues me, because he was pretty much playing as a striker for some of that game. He was right up there. And in FPL, if you're looking for like an uber differential, Ross Barkley could be it. He's obviously going to get more game time there than he did at Chelsea. Yeah. And he's that foil for Grealish as well. The reason we've gone, I think, for Grealish in this video is you've got that kind of pedigree from last season. Yeah. Sorry to mention it again, the penalties, set pieces, etc., etc. So the all-round talismanic nature of Grealish means he gets the nod over the others, I think.
I think we could have picked a number of Aston Villa players. The fixtures are taking a turn for the better.
They are, absolutely.
After that Liverpool game. And actually what we saw early on is obviously Aston Villa assets were very lowly owned on the basis that they didn't play in game week 1, so they were a game behind everybody else. Then game weeks 2, 3 and 4, they had a really interesting mix of fixtures. They had Sheffield United in there who was solid defensively last season, so they didn't feel any rush to bring in the Aston Villa players, particularly when you couple that with a game against the champions in game week 4. So it was kind of like there was no reason for us as FPL managers to take a chance on the Villa assets.
Yeah.
What we've seen in game weeks 2, 3 and 4 is an unbelievable start to the season from Villa. They look really sharp. They look to have learnt a lot of lessons from last season. And I think holding Grealish and keeping him at the club has made a massive, massive difference to the morale that they've got at Aston Villa. There was a hell of a lot of talking around, is he leaving towards the back end of last season? And couple that with, are we getting relegated? And you've got a lot of negativity at the club.
Yeah.
What we've seen this start to the season is a lot more positivity. Everything seems to be going the right way. The signing of Martinez, I think, is massive because suddenly you've got a huge...
defensively, they're way better, aren't
Absolutely. You've got
Konsa and Mings looked fantastic last couple of games.
And you've got a proper keeper, no offence, but a really solid, good keeper between the sticks who you can rely on to pull off saves.
What are you saying about Pepe Reina?
Old and, injury prone.
Past his prime, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Love you, Pepe.
In his prime, Pepe was fantastic. But now Martinez is an upgrade, a massive upgrade. They've upgraded everywhere, and we could have gone with Ross Barkley. We could have gone with Ollie Watkins, who I think is going to be a fantastic asset. And when you look at the XG and stuff in the members area, comparing Grealish and Ollie Watkins, actually Ollie Watkins comes up on top. But for everything that you've just said about penalties and the talisman and all of that good stuff, Grealish is the man for me at Aston Villa, and I think he could be a really lovely differential pick if you're on your wildcard going into a really nice run for Aston Villa where a lot of people will not be getting on the back of them on the basis that there's other players that are already performing at a high level. Now Grealish is on the back of 24, 25 points in game week 4.
Oh, something like that, yeah. I stopped counting after the 20th point.
He's shown some really positive signs in game weeks 3 and 4. But now he's going to do it consistently, and I think what we'll see after international break is Grealish at his best.
Are they going to be the go-to value team for us this season? Is it too early to say that? Or is Ollie Watkins at 5.9 going to be the go-to? Is Grealish at 7 going to be the go-to? Is Konsa at 4.5 going to be the go-to?
I think Aston Villa could end up being the side that you triple up with.
Oh,
on the basis that there's so much value there. There's so much.
Would you do it now on your wild card though? That's the question.
I probably would. If I was wildcarding right now, I would 100% be getting Martinez as a rotating keeper, because when you have those off fixtures and at his price tag, you can easily have 2 of them. So that's ideal. And I think there's definitely scope for Grealish and Ollie Watkins as your cheap. Particularly now that we've got Brewster in the game as well, who could also have gone here in the wildcard picks. Now he's got his late move away, or his actual move away to Sheffield United. So you could easily go with a front line of Kane, Watkins and Brewster and have saved loads of money that you can then invest elsewhere. So I think Aston Villa will be the bargains of this season.
All right, okay, well there we go. Jackie Grealish currently in my wildcard draft, I have to say. Currently in. The other boys not yet, but I've got a keen eye on Martinez in particular, I must admit.
Yeah.
But Ollie Watkins as well on my radar. But Grealish, I think, yes, for all the reasons we mentioned.
Yeah.
Another player that has massively impressed me so far this season. Actually, a team, to be honest with you, sorry Hammers fans, but they have kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yes, I think they have Hammers fans.
They're probably surprised their own fans. Game week 1 was not good for them against Newcastle. That didn't go well. I think we all kind of sat here and went,
there we go.
All right, that's kind of what we were expecting. But since then, they've switched up the system. Poor old David Moyes hasn't been on the touchline. Seems to have benefited them immensely, not having David Moyes on the touchline.
I'm sure it's not about you, David.
I'm sure it's not about David Moyes, but they've done very, very well game weeks 2, 3 and 4. So here we are coming into a wild
tough
card.
games as well, by the way.
Very difficult games. And by the way, it doesn't get any easier for
Not
them.
yet.
The fixtures in game week 5, 6 and 7 are Spurs away, Man City at home, Liverpool away, before a pretty nice looking fixture at home to Fulham.
Yes.
I personally fancy Antonio scything through Tim Ream and Dennis Adoy at the heart of that Fulham defence in game week 8. That has got captaincy written all over it. But despite the fixtures, Antonio and West Ham, but he in particular, have looked great. I mean, I don't want to use the word fixture proof for this guy, but you could play him in those fixtures and be pretty happy, wouldn't you?
Spurs haven't kept a clean sheet yet. Liverpool let in 7. And Man City...
Is that how many times we mentioned that?
Liverpool let in 7. And Manchester City haven't exactly looked solid defensively. There's a mistake in them at the moment. So I think for me, somebody like Antonio at the price point he is... Now, if he was 9 million, 8 million, I don't think I'd be recommending him.
He's taken a couple of price drops, hasn't he? 6-3.
But at his price point, I think he's a really nice option because he offers you a lot of value. You wouldn't mind benching him if you really don't want to play him against Spurs or Liverpool, though I don't know why you wouldn't because they conceded 7. You could easily... Did you know that we scored 6 on that same day?
I happened to notice, yes. I happened to notice. You barely mentioned it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think he could be a really nice pick. Okay, the fixtures are a bit challenging for the next 3, but after that...
A bit challenging?
But after
Spurs,
that...
Man City, Liverpool.
But they haven't exactly been on form defensively, those teams. So there is scope for goals for Antonio. And if anyone's going to get them at West Ham, would expect that Antonio is going to have a hand in it at some stage. And I think, come game week 8... There's a fixture change for Aston Villa. For West Ham...
You're really getting this claret and blue mixed up.
I know, it's because we've gone from one side of claret and blue to the other. So I think, from game week 8, the West Ham assets look like a really, really nice option. So why wait? If you know that you're going to want one of those players, at the value that he is, given that, we haven't been seeing solid defensive performances from, anybody really... There's no reason why he can't score goals. So if you think that he's a player you're going to want from 8 onwards, I don't see any reason not to have him.
Bring him in now. 6.3, as you say. Very, very good value. Have liked the look of him, despite the fixtures in the last 3 game weeks. He's been very, very good. As have West Ham. Now, a man that... a lot of people captained over the last couple of game weeks, and
Myself
a lot of
included.
people have been stung by. Yeah. However, I've been building wildcard drafts for the last few days since I hit the button. And I have to tell you, Kevin De Bruyne, has not left my wildcard team. And I've noticed a lot of people playing wildcards. A lot of people played wildcards coming into game week 4 and maybe were thinking about, do I go Sterling or De Bruyne? A lot of people going Sterling. And if you captain Sterling in game week 4, well done, you got the goal. Mm-hmm. But for me, I just... Every time I make a draft and think about taking him out, I come out in a cold sweat. I just think he is so good.
Yeah.
He is the player. He's on penalty set pieces, etc. Now, Man City definitely missing a number 9.
100%.
Definitely right now. Sterling, it's not his position. He can play it, of course, but it's not his position. His position is left. However, after the international break, there is a chance that a certain Mr. Aguero might be back in the game. And it won't be too long before a certain Mr. Jesus is back as well. So that number 9 problem will be remedied at the Etihad in the not too distant future.
Yes.
Then I think we will see again the Kevin De Bruyne that we know and love, that we frankly have missed in game weeks 3 and 4, come back to the fore. So tell me, De Bruyne on your wildcard, or maybe Sergio Aguero?
No, not Aguero for me. I think for me, it's all about De Bruyne at Man City. Man City have looked offish in this start to the season. Yeah, they haven't quite connected properly yet. I think in part that is to do with this number 9 thing. I think we were all anticipating that Sterling would play the false 9, that KDB would have this kind of marauding, just go and do what you like.
Well, he said it, didn't he? He came out and said, I'm number 10 now, I get more involved in the attacks, and we all went, right, transfer
Perfect. In. And I think it just hasn't really come off for Man City. There hasn't really been that kind of, they've just missed the spark that having a proper number 9 gives you. And that, as you say, is going to change shortly. And I think for me, looking at teams without Kevin just feels so wrong, because we all know what he will do when he gets on a run that he is undoubtedly going to go on at some point in the next few weeks. It will come. It always does come, because he is Kevin De Bruyne. And, there's going to be penalties, there's going to be set pieces, and he's going to be in the heart of those points scored. So for me, a wild card wouldn't be a wild card without Kevin. Now, yes, you can go Sterling, but, obviously missing international breakthrough injury, I'm assuming that that's probably not too bad an injury and that he'll be back after the international break. Yeah. But of the two of them, I still go with Kevin all day, every single day. Yeah,
his route to points is so multiple, isn't it, from that perspective? And it will be a baptism of fire, no doubt, Man City versus Arsenal, game week 5 for Thomas Partey, if he's the one that's got to pick up and nullify the De Bruyne threat. But after that, Man City, it's West Ham away, which, as we were just mentioning, is, it's suddenly a very difficult fixture based on how West Ham are playing. Sheffield United away doesn't look too bad. Then it's the big one, Man City, Liverpool, game week 8, before a trip to Spurs in game week 9. So there is a case, I think, looking at the fixtures, to say I don't want any Man City players in my team. It just feels too risky to me. And I'm not, and that's not because he's highly owned in FPL or anything like that. I just think on any given day, Kevin De Bruyne can turn up and turn it on. And when he does do that, you want to be there for those points. And he's a captaincy option as well. Certainly, in that Sheffield United away game in game week 7, I would have no hesitation in captaining Kevin De Bruyne if he was in my team.
Yeah, and obviously we could have picked Salah to talk about here, but I think with players like Salah, because he's already on good form, he's one of those that is already on the minds of FPL managers. So it would be a waste of our time to sit here and talk about how good an option Salah can be. Whereas with Kevin, because the form hasn't quite been there, and because Man City haven't quite got in kind of the swing of the season yet, and potentially that's because they started a bit later and all of that jazz, and we're seeing the same at Manchester United too. When Kevin goes, which he will, you're going to want to be on him. And so for me, he comes in, if you don't have him already and you're on a wild card, I'd be having him. And if you do have him, I'd be keeping. Okay,
well, there we go. Those are our top wildcard picks, guys, for game week 5 and beyond. Can't believe there's no Liverpool players in there. Absolutely ridiculous. Join us again next week, where we will be looking back at game week 4 and how the Lee versus Sam points prediction went. Oh my days, that is not going well for me, guys, I will tell you. So hit that subscribe button to be notified when that video comes out sometime next week. If you're on your wildcard, if you're tinkering, get in the comments below. Let us know what your wildcard looks like right now. I would love to know which of those picks you are putting straight in your team for game week 5 and beyond, guys. Until next time, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.